Soldiers, sailors, and airmen, you are about to embark upon the great crusade toward which we have striven these many months. The eyes of the world are upon you. The hopes and prayers of liberty-loving people everywhere march with you. In company with our brave allies and brothers in arms on other fronts, you will bring about the destruction of the German war machine, the elimination of Nazi tyranny over the oppressed peoples of Europe, and security for ourselves in a free world. Your task will not be an easy one. Your enemy is well-trained, well-equipped, and battle-hardened. But this is the year 1944. The free men of the world are marching together to victory. I have full confidence in your courage, devotion to duty, and skill in battle. We will accept nothing less than full victory. Good luck, and let us all beseech the blessing of Almighty God upon this great and noble undertaking.
Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States.
My fellow Americans, in this poignant hour, I ask you to join with me in prayer. Almighty God, our sons, this day have set upon a mighty endeavor, a struggle to preserve our republic, our religion, and our civilization, and to set free a suffering humanity. Lead them straight and true. Give strength to their arms, stoutness to their hearts, steadfastness in their faith. They will need thy blessings. Their road will be long and hard. For the enemy is strong. He may hurl back our forces, but we shall return again and again. And we know that by thy grace and by the righteousness of our cause, our sons will triumph. Help us, Almighty God, in this hour of great sacrifice.
6/6/44. 73 years later. What have we learned?
I have come here to chew bubble gum and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubble.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon. Belly up to the bar, we've kept you a seat, and it's great to see you back. Blaine is going to be your bartender tonight. He pulls with the best of them, and as you can clearly see, if you're watching on YouTube, the lava lamp is in fact lighted. We don't water our drinks, just like we don't water our conversation. Politics, religion, crime, culture, economics, race, sex, science, law. We talk about it all here at the Saloon. Nothing is sacred. The speech is free, but the booze is not. All we ask is that you flush the toilet, jiggle the handle. Don't forget to tip your server, please. Today is June 6th, year of our Lord 2017. It's Tuesday. You're listening to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon. 73 years later, the United States and allies invaded the beaches of Normandy, France, whose beaches and other European locales are being invaded in turn. We're going to be talking about that tonight. We're going to be talking to the unpleasant blind guy who really isn't unpleasant. And that's Dave Milner. We're going to be talking, coming into him, speaking. Oh, damn, turn that up. There we go. We're going to be talking to him at the bottom of the hour. It's going to be a grand time. We'll probably be speaking to Dave for about the full hour and a half for the first half hour. I've got some things that you absolutely must hear. The funny thing is, I had an entirely different intro for this show. I was going to do the D-Day intro, of course, but then I happened to watch a particular individual, and as I sat slack-jawed watching this on TV, I scrambled to the internet to try to see, oh my God, can I find this, get a copy, and play it for the show tonight. I did. This is a surprising new interview from Tucker Carlson. I don't think I've heard a woman quite like this be quite so blatantly racist. And you're going to hear right now.
Party and barred anyone who was not black from attending. This is what they said. Being intentional about being around black people is an act of resistance. This is an exclusively black space, so if you do not identify as black and want to come because you love black people, please respect the space and do not come. Lisa Durden is a political commentator and Black Lives Matter supporter. She joins us tonight. Lisa, thanks for coming on.
Thank you. Good to see you again. You're doing well.
Thank you. I was confused by this because I thought the whole point of Black Lives Matter, one of the points would be to speak out against singling people out on the basis of their race and punishing them for that. Because you can't control what your race is, and yet they seem to be doing that. Explain that to me.
What I say to that is boo, hoo, hoo. You white people are angry because you couldn't use your white privilege card to get invited
Lisa.
to the Black Lives Matters All Black Memorial Day celebration.
Oh, wait. Oh, it gets better than that.
Wow. Let me contextualize that for you. Memorial Day was created by...
I don't want you to... Wait, slow down. First of all, I don't want you to contextualize. Right?
I need to contextualize it because Memorial Day was created by black former slaves in 1865 to honor those individuals who were Union soldiers who fought and died for our freedom. So Black Lives Matter, in that same vein, decided to get together with black folks.
I'm not going to let you filibuster past my question.
To make sure that black folks were celebrated for being murdered by racist terrorists.
I don't want to shut this down, but I will. Okay. I'm not mad at...
Stop. He literally had to turn her microphone off. This is an interview, my dear. You can blather all you want, but you don't get to Bigfoot, the other guy's show. Get your own damn show.
I'm not mad at that. I just have a really simple question for you. If you don't like people excluding others on the basis of their race, and as a society we agree that that's bad. I agree it's bad, you agree it's bad. Then why are you doing it? And why are you defending it now?
White folks crack me up all of a sudden when we want to have one day for black folks to focus on ourselves. But you've been having White Day forever. You don't say the words anymore because you know it's politically incorrect.
White Day forever. Dave celebrating White Day forever. Mary celebrating White Day forever. Dan celebrating White Day forever. Hallelujah.
But you've had an all-white Oscars.
All-white Oscars. What year is she in? Hello? 1920 is looking for you, madame.
These movies with all white actors, movie after movie after movie, all white TV shows with white casts over and over and over again.
All white TV shows with white casts over and over and over. Really? It's not 1920 again, madame. I suggest look at the television, perhaps go to a movie.
The Bachelorette.
You need to get out more.
It took 11 seasons of a black Bachelorette. Okay. Are you serious?
It's hard to believe. I hope you're not speaking for anyone else. I hope there aren't a lot of people in this country who agree with you.
Well, my name is Lisa Durden. I'm speaking for Lisa Durden.
I just hope there aren't people watching who agree with you because what you're saying is so hostile and separatist and crazy. It's such a...
Now this is great. You're going to enjoy this. She doesn't just invite herself back on his show, she's going to tell him that she is coming back on his show. And it's his show.
Basic violation of what I thought we all agreed on, which is you don't attack people for things they can't control, namely their race.
It's not an attack. I'm stating the facts.
It's not a fact. It's an attack. This is grand.
These weddings where they exclude children. It doesn't mean they don't like children. They don't know if your kids are going to be monsters and those kids are going to be well behaved.
No,
so in that same vein, Black Lives Matter decided to have one day where they didn't want white folks who were going to be off the rails. They don't know if you're going to be the ones behaving.
That's right, because anytime you let white folks into any kind of an event, they're going to go off the rails. Us damn Caucasoids. This is incredible. This is absolutely incredible.
Speaking for anyone else, I hope there aren't a lot of people in this country who agree with you.
My name is Lisa Durden. I'm speaking for Lisa Durden.
I just hope there aren't people watching who agree with you, because what you're saying is so hostile and separatist and crazy. It's such a basic violation of what I thought we all agreed on, which is you don't attack people for things they can't control, namely their race.
It's not an attack. I'm stating the facts. People give weddings where they exclude children. It doesn't mean they don't like children. They don't know if your kids are going to be monsters and those kids are going to be well behaved. So in that same vein, Black Lives Matter decided to have one day where they didn't want white folks who were going to be off the rails. They don't know if you're going to be the ones behaved and for them or the ones who are there against them. So they picked one day to do the celebration.
Let me just ask you a quick question.
Whoa, wait a minute. Whoa. With her Caucasoids, naturally, according to what she's saying, we're a Guinea.
Do you think it's racist to exclude people on the basis of their skin color?
I think it's racist when you've been excluding people for hundreds of years.
She won't answer the question because the answer is yes. Martin Luther King, are you looking? Martin Luther King Jr., are you listening to what she's saying? As far as she's concerned, you didn't exist.
With your silly lectures, I'm asking you a very simple question.
We're forced to come together collectively to celebrate ourselves because you guys won't. You are the larger society. Let's be real here.
You guys, I'm talking about what I thought we all believed. Let me ask you this. Do you think it would be fair if white people did come to a Black Lives Matter celebration?
They do all the time. When you look at Black Lives Matter.
Do you use the same water fountain?
Wait, didn't she just get through saying they weren't welcome? Them ugly damn Caucasoids.
And you see Black Lives Matter coming together collectively for different issues. You see people of all races. So we do accept them. This particular day, they said, stay your asses out. We want to celebrate today. We don't want anybody going.
Stay your asses out. Question for you. Ding, ding, ding. What would happen if some Caucasoid said to blacks, hey, stay your asses out? You know.
Against us today.
And you can't celebrate if someone who doesn't look like you is around?
Yes, you can, but you can also say, I don't want to do it. It's a personal choice.
Sick. And what?
You're demented, actually. You're sick. That's going to be a line that will come back time and again in its buttery, truthful goodness.
What you're saying is disgusting, and if you were a Nazi, I would say the same thing to you.
Luckily, I'm not a Nazi.
Because what you're saying is indistinguishable from what they are saying, which is, I don't care your opinions, I don't care your views, your life experience, your intentions. All I care about is the way you look, something that you can't control. And on that basis alone, I'm judging you, and I'm hostile to you. That's the case you're making, and it's divisive and wrong. And it's amazing that you didn't have to say that out loud, but I can't believe you're making the case you're making.
Unfortunately, when you have...
Okay, stop for just a second. This actually, in truth, was a brilliant interview, and I'm very glad I saw it, and I really wanted to bring it home to you tonight so that you could hear. This is the state of the art for, I guess you could call, urban leftists, people that embrace Black Lives Matter. This is the state of the argument art when now we went from everyone must be separate, and then Martin Luther King came in, brought everyone back together, and now Martin Luther King Jr. can go straight to hell.
Have a racist society like America. You force individuals to come together collectively to make sure that they have a voice. And that's unfortunate that the racism has caused people to come together collectively.
Let me ask you a question. Is there a single white person in America you would have let into this into the celebration.
I'm not Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter is a movement.
You're just an apologist for this.
However, I can respect the decision. It doesn't mean it's a decision I would have made. Maybe I would have. Just like a wedding where I might say your kids can't bring their badasses in my wedding.
Children are not an ethnic group. Every person in the world, it does matter.
It doesn't matter. Okay.
With kids, you're saying.
Hello. Earth to the moon. Hello, moon. You've lost one of your moon bats. You can have her back.
Don't bring your badass kids.
Would it be okay? Yeah, but you see,
and that's
okay, but there are white adults and Asian adults and Hispanic adults, and presumably they're basically the same as black adults. But you don't agree with that.
We have gay pride parades. We have Puerto Rican Day parades. We have all kinds of parades and days that honor individuals. We have Mother's Day. We have Father's Day.
Fathers are allowed to participate
just take your mama out, not your daddy out.
I'm not sure you're even capable of having this conversation, so I'm going to end it now. Let me just ask you one last. Let me ask you one last question, and be totally honest with this. Do the people in your world, your parents, your siblings, your kids, your friends, do they agree with you on this?
My family respects my right to free speech.
No, don't give me that dumb answer. I mean, do they agree with what you just said, though? Do you know a lot of people who agree with what you just said? Whatever. No one's contesting it.
Wait a minute. Isn't this interesting now? She insists that she has the right to free speech because she's a leftist. But wait a minute. What about all the free speech that's been suppressed on the far left coast, on the right coast, at UC Berserk, in the city of Berserk, by all the Antifa anarchists? What about all the speech that they don't care for that gets suppressed? But she wants her free speech. Damn it.
Stop with that.
Your free speech, my free speech, can go to hell.
You'll be inviting me on again.
Do you know a lot of people who agree with you?
Tucker,
you'll be inviting me here again.
I'm going to see you again in less than a month. Ratings are going up.
I don't even know what you're talking about. Ever. No one's contesting it.
I'll see you next time on your show. You'll be inviting me on again.
Do you know a lot of people who agree with you?
Tucker, I'm going to see you again in less than a month. Ratings are going up.
I don't even know what you're talking about, and I'm not sure I look forward to it. But thanks for coming on tonight, Lisa.
Question. Does she know something Tucker doesn't know because she's coming on to Fox News?
A U.S. senator has come up with a novel plan for building a border wall.
I had to play that, as you can see. Now you understand why, after I saw that tonight on the Tucker Carlson show, all the stuff that I had for this first segment all got shoved aside. Because you had to hear it. You had to hear it. You can go to, you can replay Tucker Carlson later on tonight and actually watch it. But I had to play that for you so that you can see the reality of individuals like this. And I can think of no other word for this woman other than she's a racist. Do you see any label for that? Any other word for that? She's a racist because she can get away with it. Tucker Carlson can't. Caucasoids can't. Now, another very important question. Would I consider suppressing her speech on a college campus? No. Because the solution for challenging speech is what? More challenging speech. The First Amendment does not exist for pablum speech. It exists for speech just like this. And if she can find other people to let her on and spew this vitriol, this racist vitriol like that, more power to them. I support her right to say all of that. That's what this country is about. Conversely, we need to see and hear what people like her think of the rest of you. Because in her world, as Caucasoids, you're absolutely immaterial. You're immaterial. She's supported, obviously, by BLM, Black Lives Matter, a movement predicated completely upon a lie. And I won't go into the rest of it as to how that came about, where it came about, etc., etc. We all know that. But it's critical that you hear what she says, because she is her own best example of what I just made. Of her. You want to see black racism? Right there. Go back to Tucker Carlson, watch that cut, listen to this show again when it gets through, watch it on YouTube, listen to it on Spreaker. She's the finest example of herself I can possibly think of. I couldn't have done a better job. Not a better job at all. All right, we've got looks like about 8 minutes, and I think I can fit this one article back in. This is an article that kind of shook up leftists a bit. I don't know if stop just for a second. Where are my manners? Where are my manners? I want to say hello to HP Pundit Dan Butcher in chat. I want to say hello to White Mamba in chat. I want to say hello to Dave Milner in chat. I want to say hello to Mary Brockman, who's sitting in her own chair with the embroidered back at the saloon right now. I want to say hello to Mike. I want to say hello to Whiskey Dale and one viewer, whom I shall not unmask. Please also note, before we get into this article, note the hat. Note to Ken. Note to Ken's friends. Note the hat. Thank you. Now we're going to go to an article by Kurt Schlichter. If you don't read Kurt Schlichter, you really should. This is from an article at townhall.com. And he wrote it. It says, liberals are shocked to find we're starting to hate them right back. And he writes, I know it's theoretically wrong for a Republican candidate to smack around an annoying liberal journalist, but still doesn't mean that I care. Our ability to care is a finite resource, and in the vast scheme of things, millions of us have chosen to devote exactly none of it towards caring enough to engage in fussy self-flagellation because of what happened to Slappy La Broken Shades. Sorry, not sorry. And that's not a good thing, not by any measure, but it is a real thing. Liberals have chosen to coarsen our culture. Their validation and encouragement of raw hate, their flouting of laws. Hello, leakers. Hello, Hillary. And their utter refusal to accept democratic outcomes they disapprove of have consequences. What is itself so surprising is how liberals and their media rent boys are so surprised to find that we normals are beginning to feel about them the way they feel about us, and that we're starting to act on it. If you hate us, guess what? We're going to start hating you right back. Cue the boring, moralizing, and sanctimonious whimpering of the femi bow-tied submissive branch of conservatism. Nicely put, Kurt. Thank you. Whose obsolete members were shocked to find themselves left behind by the masses, to whom these geek sinecures were not the most important objective of the moment. This is where they sniff, we're better than that. And one has to ask, who's we? Because by nature, people are not better than that. They are not designed to sit back and take it while they are abused, condescended to, and told by a classless ruling class that there are not two sets of rules. And guess what? The old rules are only going to be enforced against them. We don't like the new rules. I'd sure prefer a society where no one was getting attacked, having walked through the ruins of a country that took that path, but we normals didn't choose the new rules. The left did. It gave us Ferguson, Middlebury College, Berkeley, and Punch a Nazi, which conveniently for the left translates to as punch normals. Many of us have had personal experiences with this new hate. Jobs lost, hassles, and worse. Some scumbags at an anti-Trump rally attacked my friend and horribly injured his dog. His freaking dog. So when we start to adopt their rules, they're shocked? Have they ever met human beings before? It's not a surprise, it's inevitable. Team FredoCon, when they aren't, nevering about Trump and his uncouth supporters, moan about the threat of whataboutism, the tendency for people to explain their suboptimal behavior by asking, what about so-and-so? He did the same thing and you didn't care. But while whataboutism may be a logical fallacy, it's still a devastatingly compelling argument. Yes, 'tis, Kurt. Thank you. Humans, especially. Normal Americans won't tolerate a double standard, but double standards apply all the time to liberals. They do it, and it's fine, and we do it, and it's Armageddon. The same jerks screaming for O'Reilly's scalp worship Bill Clinton and his drunken perv-enabling pseudo-wife. Nice cut, Kurt. Or take the Trump-Russia black hole of idiocy, please. Remember how Obama whispered to the Ruskies, "I'll have more flexibility after the election." And was that cool? But according to an anonymous source reading a bar tab over the phone to some credulous WAPO hack, one of Trump's relatives ordered a vodka once, and it's treason, treason, treason. It certainly applies to what about when they hit conservatives with a lock in a sock and the liberal media didn't care? What about that? Where was the sackcloth and ashes act from Schumer, Pelosi, and Felonia? Sorry. And Felonia von Pantsuit. When our side was being bloodied and beaten, there wasn't one because the left supports us getting bloodied and beaten. It likes the zesty zing of violence. It makes them feel big and tough and edgy, except that it starts being a heck of a lot less fun when we right-wingers start adopting the same rules and punching back. The left is shocked that the right has now stopped caring about the old rules, since for so long the left relied on the right to subordinate its human instincts and conform to those rules even when the left ignored them. We refused to stoop to their level, and for a long time we were better than that. But you can only have one side being better than that for so long before people get sick of being the butt of the hypocrisy. Hypocrisy is poison, not because it makes people stop knowing right from wrong, but because it makes its victims stop caring about right and wrong. Ben Jacobs got smacked around, and millions of us, just didn't give a damn. We all know it was wrong for Greg Gianforte to beat up Ben Jacobs if, in fact, that was what occurred. But we also know the general attitude of the media is that when we conservatives get beat up by leftists, it's perfectly excusable, even laudable. And thanks to the fact that Twitter is forever, we now know that Ben Jacobs himself specifically thinks it's A-OK to slug conservative kids. So can someone tell me why anyone should be shocked that we conservatives refuse to devote one iota of caring to pull Ben's wedgie? This isn't a good thing. This is nothing to be proud of. We should not be happy that our society is heading toward the lowest common denominator, which itself is in free fall. But the alternative is worse. Should we allow ourselves to continue to be figuratively and literally beaten up while smiling at our own piety, our own purity, secure in the knowledge that even though our dignity and freedom are stripped from us, we have not fought back? Not happening. Letting these bastards play by their own rules and thereby crush us seems a pretty high price to pay just to gain the approval of the smug and sanctimonious David Frums and John Kasich's of the world. Folks, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it's the bottom of the hour. The first segment is concluded. When we come back, we'll be speaking for the rest of the show to Dave Milner, the unpleasant blind guy, who in fact isn't.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Breaking news. According to the latest report coming out of SHR Media, a merchandise store to support both the Reaver of Common Sense and SHR Media has just been unleashed to the general public. Be forewarned that this site can be contagious and numerous items can be purchased to support the best news programming. Go to Reaver.one website and click on the store link to check out the merchandise.
Hello, I'm Matt, a student at Hillsdale College. Here's Hillsdale President Larry Arnn on the continuing relevance of the Constitution.
Many argue today that the Constitution is outdated because it addresses problems peculiar to the 18th century. Some parts of the Constitution do read rather quaintly. Consider the injunction against titles of nobility in Article 1, Section 9 of the Constitution. But is that so outdated? The purpose of the injunction is to prevent the government granting special privileges to some for partisan reasons. This strikes at the heart of the rule of law. The crony capitalism so common today is a place where the government bestows favors and tax dollars on some businesses to give them a leg up over others. This is exactly the kind of thing the Constitution was meant to prohibit. The Constitution is not so outdated after all.
This Constitution Minute was brought to you by Hillsdale College. To join the national conversation on the Constitution, go to constitutionminute.com.
Times are dark. The people misled by corrupt politicians, lied to by establishment media, and deceived by the false messages of Islam. A nation in confusion needs a guide. It needs a man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me on Spreaker, SHR Media, High Plains Talk Radio, Live Rebooting Liberty, and YouTube for a unique brand of commentary on the unpleasant blind guy. Because truth is not always pleasant.
In a world controlled by corrupt politicians.
You got a business. You didn't build that.
A team of ordinary men emerge from the ashes to give voice to the voiceless and hope to the hopeless. Sackhead Sean.
Dude, I'm not saying cow for the stupid program.
Sackhead Clint.
All good friends of ours usually show up drunk.
Also starring Sako as the producer.
I'm a little bit drunk, 'cause I'm drinking.
They are the Sackheads Radio Show. Every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific on shrmedia.com.
Beware, the Jersey Takeover is here. Every Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can catch the Reaver of Common Sense show, hosted by Jersey Joe, right here on shrmedia.com and highplains.dailynews.com. Only Jersey can deliver hell like no one else, so consider this your fair warning.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network. Conservative media done right.
In a world where insanity reigns supreme and safety pin manufacturers are running out of metal for the diapers of the leftists, it's comforting to know an ancient, fat, long-haired, bearded reprobate has your mind in mind. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California. And despite every attempt by the SHR Media Network to revoke his shameless contract, we return to the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, thank you for listening tonight. Tonight is Tuesday, June 6th, year of our Lord 2017. And we're trying something new. I think Dave Milner has called in, and he's on Skype, and I think he's actually on video with video activated. Now, I can hear him on the computer, and I think he can hear me across the phone. I can hear him in the, I'll be able to hear him in the headphones. But the problem is I might have some feedback with the computer on this end. So let's try that. Dave, welcome. Welcome to Dave Milner. Are you there, Dave? Dave, are you there?
Still here.
Okay. All right. Folks, I'm going to have to ask you then, can you guys in chat hear Dave? Because I can hear him. I'm just curious if you can, because I think we may have an issue with that. I'm waiting to see if people in chat can hear, because okay. Dave, they can't hear you. And you're calling...
They can't hear me.
No, you're calling in via Skype. Can you call in by a regular telephone instead of through Skype itself?
That I can do.
Okay. Thank you.
Give me 1 moment.
Alrighty. Thank you, sir. Okay, folks, here's what happened. Dave called in through Skype. We have Skype linked up, and when he calls in through the through Skype itself, the video portion, I'm afraid that you guys can't hear it on that end. And Mike, yes, you say you can hear him but not see him. Yeah, we don't have the ability to throw a Skype call up just yet. So we're going to wait to see if Dave can call back. We're going to talk about a lot of things tonight. I expect that you know that this is going to be probably mostly about Islam because of all the things that have occurred recently. As we wait for Dave, I could probably continue with the rest of the article because Kurt Schlichter has just a little bit more left. He said, "We conservatives have been warning for a long time that liberals are not going to like it when everybody plays by the new rules, and surprise, they don't. But guess what? Most of us don't like the new rules either, yet it's ridiculous to expect human beings to remain in perpetual denial about the situation they face, and to forever live under a double standard that results in their faces getting pressed into the dirt. The hypocrisy has become intolerable, and we have stopped tolerating it. This is just the beginning of the reaction, and make no mistake, this entire situation is a bad thing." Excuse me. Now I think we're going to have Dave in here. Let me take this off mute. We've got that on. We've got this up. And let's try that. Dave, are you there?
Yeah, don't worry, Mark. I did fart about
okay, now
5
for whatever
seconds
reason,
I
can't hear Dave.
People should be able to hear me.
And I can tell Dave is talking. I just can't hear him.
Oh, great.
Unfortunately, this is not going very well. There's obviously some kind of a little button. Mary Brockman says, "I hear him."
Hello, Mary.
Says, "Again, got to blame Sean. I got bounced the last 2 times. I think we have Dave Milner calling in again." Mary Brockman says, "We hear him. The problem is the host of the damn show can't hear him." So I'll tell you what. Let's go to a bit of a break. Let's see if I can't figure out how to fix this in a few minutes. So don't go away. It's clearly some kind of a button that stupid me has somehow deigned to either push or not push. So let's hang on for a moment. Be right back.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Hey, it's Sean from the Sackheads Radio Show. Also one of the owners here at the SHR Media Network. Are you opinionated? Have you ever wanted to do your own show? Have you ever heard somebody like the Sackheads and go, "Yeah, I could probably do that better"? Well, now's your chance. Send me a 5-minute clip at sackheadsradio@gmail.com, and maybe you can be part of the SHR broadcasting team. sackheadsradio@gmail.com.
Times are dark. The people are misled by corrupt politicians, lied to by establishment media, and deceived by the false messages of Islam. A nation looking for direction needs a guide. It needs a man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me on Spreaker, SHR Media, Pundit Press Radio, and YouTube through the SHR Media page for a different kind of commentary on the unpleasant blind guy. Because the truth is not always pleasant.
Hey, this is Mim from Freedom Fest, the world's largest gathering of free minds. Join your friends from SHR Media at the beautiful Paris Resort in Las Vegas, Nevada, July 19th through the 22nd for 3 amazing days of liberty-oriented discussion, investment advice, and the Anthem Film Festival. It's our big 10th anniversary, featuring keynote speaker William Shatner and Freedom Fest favorites, including Steve Forbes, Jim Rogers, Lee Edwards, David Boaz, Doug Casey, Dinesh D'Souza, John Stossel, Lisa Kennedy, Grover Norquist, Peter Schiff, and many more. Don't miss out. Register at freedomfest.com for $100 off the regular registration rate when you use the all-caps code SHR Media.
Featuring right thinking from a left brain and doing the job the American maggots won't. BZ is fundamentally changing America one diaper at a time. Just when safety pin manufacturers are running out of metal for the diapers of the leftists, where the speech is free, but the drinks are not. The bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon can be heard every Tuesday and Thursday night, commencing at 11 p.m. Eastern and 8 p.m. Pacific. where pushback is a requisite art form in and of itself. Let your ossicles be truly liberated when you listen to the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon, only on SHR Media Network. No ferrets were harmed in the making of this ad.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Okay, tell you what, we're just going to try it again, all right? Dave, are you there? What?
I am here.
Ah!
I am here.
Beautimus! Now I
can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Oh, my God. I don't know what I did, but I'm brilliant at it. Holy moly.
Can the audience hear me?
Well, let's see. Audience, can you weigh in? I know you're probably able to hear me now. Can you? Mary Brockman says success. Outstanding.
All right.
All right, now we have a show. Dave Milner. Whew, that was tough. And in the meantime, I'm sure in the chat, White Mamba's going to say, why is it only me that gets cut off twice on the Bloviating Zeppelin show?
Mamba, it's not just you, bro. Trust me.
Heavy sigh. First of all, there are actually a couple of people in chat who may not be familiar with you and may not have heard any of your shows. Before we go any further, Dave, can you tell us who you are and where you can be found, your shows, sites, Twitter, anything and everything? Please, Dave Milner.
Okay, if you want to contact me, I'm a UBG Contact on Twitter. That's where you can contact me with comments, questions, show suggestions, also American suggestions. It's the main contact point for my show, which is The Unpleasant Blind Guy, which can be heard on High Plains Talk Radio at, I think, 8 o'clock in the morning, and other times also on SHR Media. I'm on at 1 p.m., Monday through Friday, and at midnight on Saturday Eastern. These times are all Eastern. Midnight Saturday, that's when I drop my new shows. And that's basically it. I'm also on the English Defense League radio program where I panel with host Jeff Mitchell and the much better looking and hotter panelist Jan Rennie, our secret weapon for news. So that's basically it, Mark.
So tell me now, you've got an EDL show coming up this Thursday, correct?
Yes, we do.
Okay. And for those of you who are so inclined, you have another EDL show coming up every Thursday and Sunday, too, if I'm not mistaken.
Thursdays and Sundays at 3:30 p.m. Eastern. And Thursday, we're going to be welcoming in, we're not only going to be talking about things in the UK, particularly the elections and things like that, but we're also going to be welcoming in Leslie Ann Stovall, who will be giving us a nice debrief on the Million Canadian Deplorables March, which happened June 3rd and 4th. So we're looking forward to that. And she is always an awesome guest. So Thursday, it should be all on and very good. And everyone's welcome to come in. We're at blogtalkradio.com. Just go in there and look for EDL Radio. Bam.
Okay, and for those who also may not know, can you tell us what EDL is, what that stands for?
EDL is the English Defense League. It is what I call the spearhead civil rights organization at the moment in the United Kingdom. It was formed in about 2009 when some British soldiers were coming back from duty. I believe this was in Afghanistan, and they were being harassed by Muslims. And it was basically some of the worst harassment, circa the Vietnam era and things like that. That had been happening, and someone had decided that they'd had enough of that. They'd also had enough of Muslim child rape gangs, which had been operating in the UK for decades. They had had enough of Muslims trying to enact Sharia law, and the British government trying to support them in doing the same thing. That's when the English Defense League was formed, and it has sprung offshoots all over the planet. And I fell in with him about 4 years ago because I could tell that what is going on in the UK right now is headed right here for the United States. Some of it's already here.
I completely agree.
Yes, I'm very proud to be involved with them. There.
To set the stage for what happened and what we're going to talk about tonight, I'd like to play this for a moment.
Focus of the police investigation. A block of flats in Barking. So far, 12 people have been arrested. Women escorted from the building. These pictures were taken by those living inside. Armed police surround men lying on the floor with their hands behind their backs. The BBC also understands one of the London attackers who died had lived here. We are not naming him at the request of the police, who say it could jeopardise their investigation. But we've spoken to this man who knew him. He says over the past 2 years, the attacker became more and more extreme.
We spoke about a particular attack that happened, and like most radicals, he had a justification for anything, for everything and anything. And that day I realised that I need to contact the authorities.
This man would only speak to the BBC's Asian network if we protected his identity and changed his voice.
He used to listen to a lot of Musa Jibril. I've heard some of this stuff and it's very radical. I'm surprised some of this stuff is still on YouTube and easily accessible. I phoned the anti-terrorist hotline. I spoke to the gentleman. I told him about our conversation and why I think he's been radicalized.
The friend also claims the alleged attacker was not arrested after he was reported and was allowed to keep his passport.
Listen to that. You have a jihadi who's been reported to UK authorities, and the UK authorities, and I use that word very loosely, decided not to do a thing. And oddly enough, isn't it weird that magically that turns out to be one of the guys that's been involved this past Saturday? Dave Milner, are you shocked, sir?
At this point, no, not at all. We have to remember the FBI gave the Brits knowledge last year that the Manchester bomber was a possible threat. And they said, well, you know, they investigated it, and then they put him down lower on the priority list. This time, it was the Italians that warned the UK that one of the London Bridge attackers was planning on an attack. And again, they ignored it. So no, none of this surprises me at all. And I will give you I'll give you a little bit of an extra. One of those people in that flat, in that apartment building where they arrested those people, was the wife, or the ex-wife rather, of one of the attackers. And and she had left this individual because not only did he beat her, but because she said that he would not let her daughter watch TV because he thought it would turn her gay, and he would not let his own daughter dance. I mean, this is typical Muslim behavior. And the only thing that surprises me is that she was still in that area. And another thing, Mark, that I found fascinating, suddenly all of those Muslims that lived around him were so shocked that he was radicalized and did all this stuff. It smacks a lot of how you could not find a single Nazi in Germany in 1946. Nobody was ever a Nazi in Germany in 1946. That's what that smacks of, sir.
Exactly.
No, none of it surprises me.
Exactly. Maybe it's time. I'm going to throw some stats in here. And maybe it's time to just start with this right now. 8 major terrorist attacks in Europe with 185 civilians killed and over 700 wounded since March of 2016. So, going back May 22nd, 2017, 22 killed and 59 wounded in Ariana Grande concert. In Stockholm, Sweden, April 7th, 5 killed, 14 wounded. In St. Petersburg, Russia, April 3rd, 2017, 14 killed and 49 wounded. Westminster, March 22nd, 4 killed and 29 wounded. Germany, Berlin, Germany, December 19th, 2016, 11 killed, 48 wounded. After jihadist uses his truck to plow into a busy Christmas market. I'm sure you remember that. Nice, France, July 14th, 2016. 86 killed and over 200 wounded. Those are the stats that the loving, buttery goodness of Islam brings to you, boys and girls. Any thoughts on that, Sir Dave?
Well, let's not forget the unknown number of unreported jihadi attacks that there are.
Okay.
I mean, you have now in countries like Sweden, the police report stabbings, and these stabbings are incredibly good because the victims' heads seem to fall off when these happen. All right, the police departments in these various European and countries and in the UK report these stabbings and these domestic incidents. And it just happens to be Muslims doing it to non-Muslims, or Muslims doing it in honor killings, or things of that nature. So the stats you're talking about, that's just the tip of the iceberg. That's not the everyday stuff, the stuff that goes on every day. And Mark, people call, the left calls people like you and I thisists and thatists and thisophobes and thatophobes.
Exactly.
They don't understand what is going on in these countries that are being Islamized, and Islamized to the point now where the indigenous people of all colors, by the way, so don't throw race into this, lefties, the indigenous peoples are actually beginning to go insane. And I'll give you a good example, Mark. Do you know what the big vacation spot is in Europe now? Take a guess.
My guess would be it's certainly not Marseille, which is about 95% Muslim. Used to be a beautiful little harbor. Now it's not. Let me guess. It's not Paris because that's gone. It may or may not be London. Dave, I'm afraid you're going to have to tell me.
Cyprus. Their hotels are booked up for over a year at this point, because it's the only country that tourists know they can go into and be safe, more or less, from attack from Muslims. And they have Muslims on Cyprus, but they keep them on the northern end of the island. They don't even let them near the tourists. They're almost fanatical about that. They're making big money right now in Cyprus, and it's a big vacation spot. And this is apocryphal. Well, okay, it's not apocryphal. This is kind of secondhand. It comes from Jan Rennie, who panels with us on EDL Radio. She was there last year and talking to this Swedish couple, or this couple of Swedish guys. I don't know what they're talking about, but anyway, they came there to play golf. All right, and they didn't want to know about the problem in their own country. They pretended like it didn't exist, and yet, Mark, in Sweden, all right, private security forces now outnumber the Swedish army. That should tell you something.
It's
right
the
there.
rape capital of the world. If you have a vagina, the first thing I do is stay the hell away from Sweden.
Oh, they can't. Kel probably told you this. They can't keep brown and black hair dye on the shelves. These wonderful, blonde Swedish beauties are dyeing their hair because that's the first thing that these Muslims go for when they go to Sweden. It's like it's a sex arrow for them. They got to have them some of that blonde. It's awful. I mean, that entire country is gone. And as you said, Marseille gone, France almost gone, pretty much gone. As you pointed out yourself, they voted themselves pretty much out of existence by putting in the Macron. That's a term from Quake 4. Look it up, guys. But in the UK, this is what's scary. Theresa May now has a lead over Jeremy Corbyn, who is the Labour Party candidate, and that is only about 1 point. She has only about a 1 point lead in the polls.
Yep, that's just what I heard. And for those people who are not familiar with what's going in, Dave already knows, I know he knows, this Thursday, the UK has an election, and it's going to be between Jeremy Corbyn, basically a dude on the left. I'll make it simple for everyone. He's your standard Mark 1, Model 1 leftist. And between Theresa May, who's the current PM, Prime Minister. She was installed last year in July of 2016. And even she's not really what you'd call a hardcore right-winger, but she's certainly more right than Jeremy Corbyn. So the Britons are going to go to the polls this Thursday to decide if they're going to pull a Macron, whether they're going to decide that their future lies left or whether their future lies on a current status with Theresa May. And you're right. You're absolutely right, Dave. At this point, there is a 1 point difference between the two. But
and that could drift to the left. And let's give a little bit more information on Jeremy Corbyn. He is well known to have buddied up with the Irish Republican Army and also with Hamas. He's very tight with the Muslims. So if people in the UK believe that ousting Theresa May will get them more security and fewer terrorist attacks, it'll do the exact opposite. That's how I see it. Because this guy has he's basically an indigenous British Sadiq Khan.
Oh, Sadiq Khan. Oh, yes. Okay, we've got 3 minutes till the top of the hour break, Dave.
Yes, sir.
What people need to know is that the UK police now, this is the third terror attack on UK soil in 3 months. 7 people were killed and almost 50 were injured in Saturday's attack. In March, 5 people were killed in a car and knife attack near Parliament in London. 2 weeks ago, 22 people died in that suicide bombing at the concert in Manchester. But what do the British authorities do? You and I both know, effectively, nothing. There's going to be a lot of rhetoric and perhaps a bit of bombast, but there's going to be no fundamental changes to the way the UK addresses Muslim killers and terrorists. For example, the most glaringly obvious thing to me, perhaps to you, would be firearms, for example, are not going to be roundly issued to their police forces. And that's what, I don't know if you remember the guy from Katrina, Lieutenant General Russell Honore, that quote from him. As far as I'm concerned, he's right. The Britons are stuck on stupid. Stupid.
Yes, they are.
In terms of not addressing the Muslim people living in enclaves, in no-go zones, in London, throughout all other UK cities, attracted there specifically because of the UK's lack of addressing these issues. Folks, it's the top of the hour.
Man.
I'm going to ask you a question, Dave, and then we'll come back and I'll hit you right out of the break. Dave, consider this.
Okay.
I'm going to ask you this. Why are so many Muslims going to the UK? There's an answer, I believe, and I think you know already what that answer is. Folks, you're listening to the Blow-V-Eating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon. It's the top of the hour. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being engaged in chat. Thank you for listening in podcast if and when you do so. We will be right back after this break. We are talking to Dave Milner, and we'll be doing so for the rest of the show for another hour. You're listening to the SHR Media Network. Thank you for listening.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Hey, it's Sean from the Sackheads Radio Show, also one of the owners here at the SHR Media Network. Are you opinionated? Have you ever wanted to do your own show? Have you ever heard somebody like the Sackheads and go, yeah, I could probably do that better? Well, now's your chance. Send me a 5-minute clip at sackheadsradio@gmail.com, and maybe you can be part of the SHR broadcasting team. sackheadsradio@gmail.com.
Times are dark. The people are misled by corrupt politicians, lied to by establishment media, and deceived by the false messages of Islam. A nation looking for direction needs a guide. It needs a man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me on Spreaker, SHR Media, Pundit Press Radio, and YouTube through the SHR Media page for a different kind of commentary on the unpleasant blind guy. Because the truth is not always pleasant.
Hey, this is Mim from Freedom Fest, the world's largest gathering of free minds. Join your friends from SHR Media at the beautiful Paris Resort in Las Vegas, Nevada, July 19th through the 22nd for 3 amazing days of liberty-oriented discussion, investment advice, and the Anthem Film Festival. It's our big 10th anniversary, featuring keynote speaker William Shatner and Freedom Fest favorites, including Steve Forbes, Jim Rogers, Lee Edwards, David Boaz, Doug Casey, Dinesh D'Souza, John Stossel, Lisa Kennedy, Grover Norquist, Peter Schiff, and many more. Don't miss out. Register at freedomfest.com for $100 off the regular registration rate when you use the all-caps code SHRmedia.
Featuring right thinking from a left brain and doing the job the American maggots won't. BZ is fundamentally changing America one diaper at a time. Just when safety pin manufacturers are running out of metal for the diapers of the leftists, where the speech is free, but the drinks are not. The Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon can be heard every Tuesday and Thursday night, commencing at 11 p.m. Eastern and 8 p.m. Pacific, where pushback is a requisite art form in and of itself. Let your ossicles be truly liberated when you listen to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon, only on SHR Media Network. No ferrets were harmed in the making of this ad.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon. Tonight we have the pleasure of speaking to Dave Milner, otherwise known as the Unpleasant Blind Guy, and in fact he's not. Not that he's not blind, but that he's not unpleasant. Actually, I think discussing with him you'll find that Dave is quite pleasant indeed. Dave, welcome back. We're on the beginning of the third segment, and I had a question for you just before we left for the break, and that is this. Why do you suspect, sir, that we find so many Muslims, maybe even Salafists, leaving other countries to come to the UK? Why might that be, sir? Dave, are you there?
Yep, still here.
Oh, there we go. So anyway, why is it that you think that there might be so many Muslims moving from other countries specifically into the UK?
Well, part of it is money. I mean, there are several reasons, and I know you've got some, but part of it is money. They're one of the few countries that used to be in the EU bloc that actually had any money. So they can get a lot of very nice welfare there. The other reason is a government that is becoming increasingly Sharia compliant. And of course, if they elect Jeremy Corbyn, you can put a warp engine on that.
Oh, hell yes.
And those are really the main reason. And of course, third, there's a population of indigenous people that they can victimize. There's also that. Because you have many people, not just in the UK, Mark, but in a lot of these European countries, these so-called refugees, or actually just migrants, Muslim migrants, will come to these centers, to these migrant centers, and declare openly, no, I'm not going to work, and yet I want an apartment of my own with some spending money as well, and a clothing allowance. They get all that from the UK. They want first class treatment, and they want it now. And if they don't get it, they're going to do things like set the place on fire, which was done with one migrant transit center. I think that might have been in Germany. I don't quite recall, but that did happen in one place because the migrants were disgruntled that they weren't being put in apartment buildings immediately, and they were being moved to what we would probably call like a halfway house.
Yes, you're right. You're absolutely right. I believe it was Germany, and yes, they did torch it. Virginia Hale wrote an article that said a number of radical Muslims are flocking to move from France to Britain, where, just as you say, Dave, generous welfare payments, lack of scrutiny from the authorities, and ease with which families can practice strict Islam have earned the UK a reputation as a halal paradise for Salafists who are unable to secure visas for Saudi Arabia. You and I know what a Salafist is, and that's this: one of the most stringent of limited practices of Islam. They are fundamentalists. They take the Quran basically word for word, very strictly. There's another.
Oh yes, they basically call the Wahhabists Uncle Toms. But please go ahead.
There's a neighborhood in Birmingham, I believe, called Small Heath. 95% of the residents there practice Islam. And that's sort of the paradise vacation spot for French Muslims who are seeking a new home because, as I think you already know, France banned the burqa. Now, the burqa is the full beekeeper uniform. France banned the burqa in 2010, so it's liberating for Muslims to go to the UK because that's not what happens in France. They can wear the burqa in the UK. It's, as far as they're concerned, it's cool for them. There's single-sex gymnasiums now. There's pool schedules with segregated swimming. Shops now that have prayer rooms and prayer rugs and hospitals. Women can demand to be seen now by a female doctor only. Schools play a huge part in that to move to Britain. They don't have to be subject to television. They don't have to be subject to, just as you said, the homosexual propaganda in French state schools. See, in any other culture, that would be called homophobia. That would acquire an instant label. But, Dave, do you see, how many leftists do you see labeling Muslims as homophobic?
Almost none.
Yeah, I can't say that I really find them.
Bill Maher is about the only one, and the reason they don't label them as homophobic is the same reason that the Labour Party and, sadly, too many idiots in the Conservative Party in the UK are welcoming them. It all comes down to votes. They want to blow up the ballot box, and that's why Justin Trudeau is fast enacting almost everything you just talked about in Canada. These things are happening very quickly in Canada. This isn't, what you're talking about happened in the UK over about 20 or 30 years. This is happening in Canada over the about half that time. And there are huge Muslim enclaves. Before we hit the break, I just wanted to tell people one of the enclaves over there has over 1 million Muslims in it. So their problems with Islam in the UK are very, very deep. So
one of the Muslims quoted in this article said, "We are really caught in a crossfire. Europe doesn't like us, but we're not really welcome in the Gulf states either. They say to you, 'Go home, brother. We have nothing for you here.'" And but for the Salafists, though, who absolutely demand that they live in strict accordance with Islamic teachings, there's nothing easier than going to the UK. There's a generous welfare package. There's public services delivered free. Plenty of work available if they want it. Most don't. And all with no visa or residence permits required. But they don't get it. They absolutely don't get it. We just named off, Dave, 3 incidents in 3 months in the UK. Then I named all the incidents that killed hundreds of people throughout Europe. But again, the UK is on the cusp of going left again, just as France did. So I have to ask you, Dave, what do you think is going to happen on Thursday?
This is going to be it's a difficult question to answer, because you have UKIP, which is the United Kingdom Independence Party, and it has in the past drawn a lot of votes, and it could draw off a lot of votes from the Conservative Party. That's one of the things that should worry people who are backing the Conservatives, because they could wind up losing because of this. That said, Jeremy Corbyn is not having the best press at the moment. His terrorism, as they call it, his terrorism supremo, we would say like his terrorism czar, ducked out of an important radio interview, claiming she was sick, and it was spotted out and about later, having a good time. So after she couldn't answer some vital questions in a TV interview. So really, the Labor Party can't come out and say, well, we're not going to do a damn thing about Islam. They can't do that. So they're beginning to duck out of things. But at this point, it might be too late, because too many people are blaming the one that's in office for these 3 terrorist attacks and all the other stuff that's going on right now. And that is why I honestly don't know. My hope is that they will stick with May. She's not a great choice, but she's certainly better than anything else. But if enough votes are drawn off by UKIP, they could very well have a super mega leftist in the seat of the PM on Friday morning, and I'm just hoping not. I know that we're going to be working hard, I'm pretty sure, on EDL Radio to try and press this point. You don't want to go from the frying pan into the fire. If you think things are bad in the UK now, just wait and put in Jeremy Corbyn and see how much worse they can get.
Well, the funny thing about Jeremy Corbyn, and it's not funny, it's funny, weird, not funny, ha-ha, for fuck's sake, is that he used that massacre, the various massacres, as a pretext to call on Theresa May to resign. Because his point was, when she was Home Secretary between 2010 and 2016, before she became PM, Prime Minister, she reduced the number of British police officers by 20,000 as part of the Conservative government's cost cutting. So that came roundabout to strike her smack right dab in the face. And so she's going to have to suffer the brunt of that. I'm sure she didn't see all of this stuff brewing. I don't think she's smart enough. Quite frankly, I don't. Do you have any confidence, Dave, in UK authorities, leaders, air quotes, leaders or not, do you have confidence that they can pull themselves out of this? Is there an extraction? Can it be saved?
There's not a peaceful extraction, not at this point. They have two directions they can go now. They can either go in the direction of capitulation, and it can either be fast or slow depending on which party is elected. They can do that, or they can actually try and clamp down on Islam and save their own people, in which case there will be riots, there will be blood in the streets, there will be civil war. And honestly, Mark, I don't think they want to do that, because they don't want to be the ones held responsible for the riots of 2017. And that's a terrible thing to say, but as I see it, those are the only two directions that they have to go at this point. There's not going to be a peaceful and painless way out of it, and you know that politicians love peaceful and painless ways out of things. It ain't there anymore.
No, I'm afraid it's not. I have a cut here that a gentleman by the name of Majid Nawaz spoke to Fox News' Martha McCallum. Now, he is a former extremist and has come over to the other side, so to speak. And I'd like to play a few things that he happened to say recently about his interpretation of what's going on these particular days in the UK.
Cold-blooded attacks in 3 months in England, and no signs of sheer terror abating anytime soon. In March, a lone wolf killed 4 people in a brutal rampage at the Parliament. 2 weeks later, in Manchester, or 2 weeks ago, rather, a suicide bomber murdered 22 children were among the dead there. And now 50 hours ago, 7 innocent lives taken by terrorists on London Bridge and Borough Market. British Prime Minister Theresa May and London Mayor Sadiq Khan are taking heat for their reserved responses to the terror. But President Trump not holding back what he thinks in a series of tweets, saying this: pathetic excuse by London Mayor Sadiq Khan, who had to think fast on his, quote, no reason to be alarmed statement. MSN, mainstream media, working hard to sell it, he says. Joining me now, chairman of the Quilliam think tank and a former Islamic extremist, Maajid Nawaz. Maajid, thank you for being here tonight. It's good to have you with us this evening. You know, you listened to that list, and we played the soundbite from our last conversation back in March when you warned that there would be much more to come. I suppose you're sorry you were right.
Indeed, and I think we have to come to terms, Martha, with the fact that Europe, Britain and the rest of Europe are in the midst of a full-blown jihadist insurgency. You were citing figures earlier that our security services are attempting to monitor around 23,000 suspected jihadists.
Listen to that. 23,000 suspected jihadists. That's an incredible figure. But they brought them. They wanted them. Now they got them.
That, by the way, is out of a population in the UK of just 5% that are Muslim, which means that 23,000 from 4 million Muslims in this country, and around those 23,000, that's those who are jihadists, around them will be those who sympathize with the ideology, Islamists, who believe in establishing a caliphate, and around them those who empathize with their friends who happen to be Islamists. If that's not insurgency levels, I don't know what is.
Insurgency levels. This from a former extremist himself. But Dave, with numbers like that, 23,000 essentially known jihadis, the door was opened. You don't have a police force. It's been reduced. They don't even have firearms at ready disposal. What can you do if you're a country like that? What can you do?
It's worse than that. I mean, now this is not all Theresa May's fault. Some of this was Cameron,
yes.
And some of this was brought in before David Cameron took it.
God, yes.
Okay. Mosques, okay? The police cannot enter a mosque without the permission of the imam. They have to ask permission before they can enter a mosque just to search it. They cannot bring in sniffer dogs because dogs are unclean in the Islamic, quote-unquote, religion. And, of course, they have to take off their shoes. So what you have is mosques, being the command and control centers that they are, able to store up all kinds of weapons or whatever supplies, whatever the jihadis need. They can do that. And, hey, if the British authorities want to search the mosque, there's plenty of time to clean the place out so that they find nothing. And what he was saying about the people around the insurgents, those are the moderate Muslims, okay? And listen, I'm one of these people. I think the numbers are flipped. I don't think that it's 20% of Muslims that want jihad. I think it's 20% of Muslims that don't. All right, and it's the rest that do. It's just the vast majority that support the few of the ones that actually go out there and get their knuckles grazed with money and with silence and with any other assistance that they can give. And that's what happens when you have these enclaves, because they're perfect breeding grounds, perfect hiding places. It's a wonder, honestly, that they catch any of these people at all, because at this point, it's almost at a stage where they can just hand them off from one city to another city and even get them out of the country if they need to. That's how bad it's gotten. And again, this has to be emphasized, Mark. This is not just the UK.
Oh,
if
God,
we
no.
do not get a handle on this, this will be us, and not in very many years either.
No, we just had the State Department decide of its own that it was going to undermine the precepts of President Trump, and on its own decided that it was going to allow many more refugees in from various countries like Syria, when we fully well know the refugees that we see are primarily of male combat age. But you talk about moderate Muslims. People talk or write about moderate Muslims and about them being good people. Number one, I tend to agree with you in terms of those numbers, that it's probably flipped. And of course, there are good Muslims, I'm sure of it. That may be true, but I submit that those people that are termed moderate Muslims are really not good practicing Muslims as demanded in the Quran and the Hadith.
Oh, no, they're not.
It should come as no shock that that Islam is judged primarily by acts committed in its name. I have a saying that I've said it for years now. Islam is as Islam does. And I also have the Beezy's reversal theory. What about this? What if all the acts of terror that were committed by Islam were committed in the name of, say, Catholicism? What do you think would happen? Long ago, we would have had burning Catholic churches all across Europe. And there would have been burned Catholic churches in the United States and other countries as well. So,
Mark, in the 2016 election, you had Democrats passing around memes saying that if Trump or any Republican was elected in 2016, that we would go back to the Dark Ages, and it would be the time of the Inquisition and and the Christian Crusades. Not knowing that actually the Crusades were a good thing, but they were saying it would be a dark age led by Christians. So your premise here is a really good one, because the left are more than ready to destroy any vestige that there possibly could remain of Christianity, because one of the things that Christianity preaches is free thought.
Towards the end of the program, I have about an 8-minute cut by Ben Shapiro that I happened to find today, Dave, just for this show. And like I say, it's about 8 minutes, but he explains in a fashion that I had not thought imaginable what he considers to be the reasons that leftists are absolutely enthralled with Islam. So I'm going to play that cut towards the end of the show. I'd like to continue on a little bit with Nawaz and what he happens to say to Martha McCallum, which continues to be pretty interesting.
I mean, it is just terrifying to look at the growth of this in so many places. You think of Belgium, you think of Paris. So what do you think? You know, there are some who, we had another attack here today in Orlando, which was of a very different nature. But some people look at these as just individual incidents of violence, you know, and people who are off balance and who are violent, you know, based on other things.
See, what she's doing, Dave, is the thing that you and I know that the American media maggots do. This is all about lone wolves. This doesn't have anything to do with Islam. This doesn't have anything to do with an organization of any form. These are all just lone wolves acting on their own.
What do you say to people who sort of have that perspective of what's going on in your country right now?
It's an absolute insult to people who suffer from mental illness, the majority of whom, by the way, medically, statistically, we know the majority of people who suffer from mental illness are not violent. In fact, they are the victims of violence. And it's an insult to people who suffer genuinely from medical conditions of mental health issues to accuse or to scapegoat terrorism as simply loners who are suffering from mental health. It may be a bit of that involved, but frankly, in every case we look at, there are networks involved. Radicalization has happened. These jihadist terrorists are indoctrinated by an ideology that believes first and foremost that their particular and very specific view of Islam must be imposed on everybody else, and by force when necessary. Take these two attackers, for example, Khurram Butt and Rashid Radwan. They hailed, especially Khurram Butt.
Well, as a matter of fact, if you had the last name of Butt, you'd probably be pissed off yourself.
Is known to have hailed from the Al-Muhajirun network. Al-Muhajirun was led in the UK until recently by Anjum Chowdhury, who was convicted and is now in prison for having sworn allegiance to ISIS. Al-Muhajirun effectively in the UK was the wing of ISIS that was active and operating in the United Kingdom. In turn, Al-Muhajirun itself was a splinter group of a broader organization that remains legal, my former group, Hizb ut-Tahrir. And so for decades in Europe and in Britain, organizations that espouse the Islamist ideology, want to impose their view of Islam on everybody else, these organizations have been indoctrinating young people like I was at 16 when I joined. I'm now 40 this year, so that's how long this has been going on.
Point to you, Dave. Point to you. As you said, this is nothing new, and by this time, literally decades, these guys are embedded like ticks.
Yes. A friend of mine, Mark, named Zach, who lives in Birmingham, has spoken to many Pakistani Muslims. They call themselves Pakistanis, even though to quote him, they call themselves Pakistanis even though their grandmothers were born in the UK. They don't identify as Brits. They identify as Pakistani. So yes, decades.
Absolutely. Now you've got this guy that we spoke about earlier, Sadiq Khan, London's mayor, as he threw up his hands and said, this is the new normal. There's nothing we can do about it. If we wish to be sufficiently enlightened and progressive. So let's listen to his words about what he said.
Mayor of New York, our people, his office, our people having spoken to the police here, the advice we've received is 29 people have been injured. They were my thoughts and prayers. The advice we've received from the police service here and from the mayor's office is to carry on business as usual. I'm not going to speculate as to who was responsible. I'm not going to speculate.
He's not going to speculate. He knows full fucking well who's responsible.
As to how the police in New York should react. What I do know is part and parcel of living in a great global city is you've got to be prepared for these things. You've got to be vigilant. You've got to support the police doing an incredibly hard job. You've got to support the security services. And I think speculating when you don't know the facts is
speculating. You don't know the facts. Again, covering up. Gaups covering up for Islam. And, of course, a guy named Sadiq Khan covering up for Islam. Boy, I didn't see that one coming, did you?
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, it's not a surprise. It is, their new strategy. What they tell the people to do is to run, hide, and tell. They want the British public to be like rabbits or little lambs who are fit for the slaughter. And yes, of course, this Sadiq Khan just says, well, he doesn't want to speculate, because the only thing that can be done to deal with this is to extract the Mohammedans from the United Kingdom, and certainly he doesn't want to do it because he's one of them.
No, of course.
All right, so naturally he doesn't want to do it. And as far as run, hide, and tell, if you have the time, I just want to mention one guy named Roy Larner. All right, this is a guy who Jeff Mitchell loves this guy because he's a supporter of the Millwall soccer. This guy waded in to some of the London Bridge attackers because they were using knives and things like that, and he went in with fists flying to stop them and saved who knows how many lives. And his battle cry was "F you, I'm Millwall." Now he got sent to the hospital, but he saved who knows how many lives. If he had listened, and if so many others, including in the United States, remember that junior college where that Muslim lined up people and shot the ones that were Christian? Remember that one?
Yes.
Okay. If they had done the same thing, if they had bum rushed that guy, sure, a couple of them would have been shot, but they would have gotten the guy. Run, hide, tell, BS. Now, my call is stand, fight, and win. It's down to the people of the UK now, Mark, because their government doesn't give a rat's behind. Neither do the governments of the EU. Juncker is practically the next Hitler. Certainly Trudeau has the same mindset when it comes to this kind of thing. They don't give a damn about the indigenous people of their countries. And certainly the progressive left here in the United States is in lockstep with them. As long as those ballot boxes are blown up, bring them on in.
That's exactly correct. It's the bottom of the hour on the left coast. It's 9:30. On the east coast, it's 12:30. In Bolivia, it's 23:37 and 2700 seconds. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, we're going to be right back after the break, and then we're going to play a cut from Ben Shapiro, and he's going to tell you why leftists are in love with Islam.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Hey, it's Sean from the Sackheads Radio Show, also one of the owners here at the SHR Media Network. Are you opinionated? Have you ever wanted to do your own show? Have you ever heard somebody like the Sackheads and go, yeah, I could probably do that better? Well, now's your chance. Send me a 5-minute clip at sackheadsradio@gmail.com, and maybe you can be part of the SHR broadcasting team. sackheadsradio@gmail.com.
Times are dark. The people are misled by corrupt politicians, lied to by establishment media, and deceived by the false messages of Islam. A nation looking for direction needs a guide. It needs a man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me on Spreaker, SHR Media, Pundit Press Radio, and YouTube through the SHR Media page for a different kind of commentary on the unpleasant blind guy. Because the truth is not always pleasant.
In a world controlled by corrupt politicians,
You got a business. You didn't build that.
a team of ordinary men emerge from the ashes to give voice to the voiceless and hope to the hopeless. Sackhead Sean.
Dude, I'm not saying coffee is stupid, bro.
Sackhead Clint.
All good friends of ours usually show up drunk.
Also starring Sako as the producer.
I'm a little bit drunk, cause I'm drinking.
They are the Sackheads Radio Show. Every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific on shrmedia.com.
The bloviating Zeppelin. He's Bigfooted enough radio shows to last a lifetime, courtesy of Sean, Clint, Ken, and Jersey Joe. Now it's time for him to waddle on his own 2 feet via the glorious SHR Media. Gird thy loins for the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon. Coming soon to ossicles near you. Excelsior.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
In a world where insanity reigns supreme and safety pin manufacturers are running out of metal for the diapers of the leftists, it's comforting to know an ancient, fat, long-haired, bearded reprobate has your mind in mind. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California. And despite every attempt by the SHR Media Network to revoke his shameless contract, we return to the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon.
And folks, thank you for listening to the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon. Almost forgot the crazy aspect of it. And thank you for being in chat. We have been speaking for most of the show to Dave Milner, the unpleasant blind guy. Dave has been with us. We're weighing in on the aspects of Islam in the UK and also the US and Canada as well, because we're finding that, it doesn't just stop its buttery goodness in the UK. So, Dave, I have I think it's about a 7, maybe an 8-minute cut of Ben Shapiro, and he's saying that the left loves Islam, and here's why. What I'm going to do during this is I'm going to stop, and then perhaps both of us can weigh in on some of the things that he's saying.
Could you please explain the unholy alliance between the left and the forces and the Muslim supremacists, considering that the premises and the principles of both of them are mutually incompatible?
Okay, so they're not mutually incompatible to point A, they are to point B. What I mean is that it's a timeline. The left wants to tear down Western civilization because it thinks it's unequal. The radical Muslims want to tear down Western civilization because they think it's evil. So to the point of tearing down Western civilization, they're pretty much on the same page. It's where they go from there that's a problem, right? One side wants to build a caliphate and the other side wants to build a communist utopia. The reason that the left is routinely, and it's almost invariable, that the left ends up siding with the world's worst human beings in every situation is because, again, if you just go back to that fundamental leftist principle that equality of outcome is all that matters in life, that equality of outcome means that something just is happening, think about it. The real world is a place where God designed it this way. I believe this. God designed it not for every individual, but certainly for the vast bulk of humanity. If you do responsible, good things with your life, you will be more successful than if you do irresponsible, bad things with your life. Well, if the left believes that people who are unsuccessful are more virtuous, then what that means is that the non-virtuous are more virtuous, right? Because the people who are unsuccessful are generally not doing good, responsible things.
That's a convoluted philosophy, but I have to tell you, Dave, I think he's spot on. I think he's said it effectively. The leftists are for the actual outcome, and they're for the underdog. They also see Islam as the underdog. Your thoughts?
Oh, well, it's absolutely right. Jan Rennie codified this in even a simpler way. She said that the left agree with and support Muslims so much because they are like them. And, I could go in further for that, but, let's hear more of the thing.
Well, yes, I say that, and it's sad. It's sad that we have to say this. I think that the left and Muslims are like the Borg. You have to be assimilated or you're going to die.
And the left says, well, those people are victims, let's help them. Right? So the Muslims in the Middle East are victims of Israel. They must be victims of Israel because Israel's rich and its neighbors are not. So they must be victims. Well, the real reason the Palestinian Muslims, for example, are poor is because they've spent all the money that has been given to them, hundreds of billions of dollars, all the money that's been given to them over the course of decades, and they've spent it on terrorism, and they've spent it on stocking it away in their bank accounts of Yasser Arafat and Mahmoud Abbas, and they've spent it on garbage, and they spent it on anti-Israel propaganda. That's the real reason they're poor. But the left looks at it and they say, they're poor. That means they're virtuous. This is why I hate it, really despise it, when Republicans do the whole, I'm a better person because I have a rags to riches story. You weren't a better person when you're poor. Okay, no one is a better person just because they're poor. By the way, no one's a better person because they're rich. All that wealth is a measure of how many voluntary exchanges you engaged in a free market. That's all that wealth is. But the idea for the left is that all inequality is evil. Therefore, the people who are unequal at the top are evil, and the people at the bottom are virtuous. Again. I think he struck this out of the ballpark. What do you think, Dave?
And what the left aren't understanding is that in Islamic cultures, in their root cultures, you have a very, very few extremely rich people at the top, and everyone else lives in mud huts. But this is something that the left tends to ignore because they have been sold the bill of goods that all Islamic people are the underdogs.
Of course, yes. So, they're the underdogs. We must be for them after all, despite the fact, Dave, that in taking over, so to speak, all those people on the left would be the first to be hurled off buildings like homosexuals. The first to be sacrificed. The very first to be sacrificed.
Which is why you'll hear people on the left say things like they like small business, but they hate people who are big business, like the Walmart family, right? The Walton family. They're terrible. Well, were they terrible when they were just a family living in the middle of nowhere? When exactly did they transition over into evil? Right? When they became successful enough, because their success meant, by necessity, according to the leftist worldview, they were depriving others of their fair share. And Bernie Sanders said this right after winning New Hampshire the other night. And this is Bernie Sanders' entire thing. He says the principle of America is the principle of fairness, which makes me want to vomit and never stop vomiting. The principle of America is not fairness of outcome. And he was talking about fairness of outcome. He said, how it's unfair that 1% of the population lives with more wealth than 90% of the rest of the population.
That's right. He's talking about opportunity versus outcome. The Constitution speaks, the Declaration of Independence speaks about opportunity. But it's the responsibility of the individual to determine that outcome.
And well, maybe, or maybe it's not unfair, because it turns out that 1% of the population is hiring the other 90% of the population to actually provide their services and labor.
So a lot of these social justice circles, a lot of them lying left of the aisle, they believe in these.
That's all right. We're going to go. He was going on to another question. But I have to ask your opinion, Dave. Do you think Ben Shapiro's right? Do you think he's got something going on there?
Definitely. Okay, I'll reference something that people in your age and mine can understand, and others can look it up on YouTube. There's an old episode of the Flintstones where Fred Flintstone, basically, he's a lefty. He's complaining because Mr. Slate has the chauffeur-driven car and all the money and everything, and he's a big boss, and it's just wrong that Fred has to go work every day, for 8 hours a day for a pittance of a wage and everything. And then somehow, and then he gets magically transformed for one day to be Mr. Slate. And he finds out after working about a 14-hour day and coming home just mega exhausted that it's a little bit different at the top. That guy that provided the salary for Fred to have his house and his car and his dinosaur and all that stuff really worked his butt off. So yes, Mr. Shapiro totally has this.
The meme, the American maggot meme, was that most of these people are, they're one-offs. There's no organization to them. It's just the lone wolf kind of thing. Wait, Dave, wasn't at least one of the suspects in that most recent London attack on Saturday a refugee? Again, air quotes, refugee, because, they're supposed to be lone wolves.
One of them actually applied for asylum in the UK and was denied, and yet he stayed on and married the very woman that I spoke of earlier. He stayed on in the UK even though he was denied asylum there. This shows just how their government is prepared to lick the boots of Muslims. He should have been ejected immediately. And I have to say this. For the people who keep crying lone wolf, all of these lone wolves have Islamic fleas, and they jump on everyone and everything.
You pointed an article out to me that I have displayed. I have a series of about 17 to 20 tabs displayed on my confuser in front of me. Thank goodness it hasn't died yet. But you sent me an article from High Plains Pundit, and I have to give my kudos to Dan Butcher. And I don't know if you happen to have that article in front of you or not, but you brought it to my attention. And Dan Butcher wrote at highplainspundit.com, his headline says, London Bridge terrorist worked at Westminster Tube Station, had access to tunnels located under UK Parliament. I'm going to read about 2 paragraphs of this. Khurram Butt was familiar to London and UK law enforcement. Butt had known connections to radical Islamic terrorists and appeared in a jihadi documentary. Yet, UK authorities did not consider Butt a credible threat to launch an attack. How did all of that work out this past weekend? Not well. So, he's already in the culture. He's already in the system. And he has access. He's a piece of dynamite waiting to be struck. He was, in fact, struck. And now the UK authorities are gobsmacked. They're gobsmacked. How did this guy get here? What happened to him? Looks to me like, in retrospect, all the sites and pieces were there to be connected. Sir.
Last year, this is how bad it's gotten, all right? It's even gotten into the police forces. Last year or the year before, a female Muslim detective at New Scotland Yard, that's the London PD for our American friends, actually resigned her job because she said she had reported that her fellow detectives in this kind of anti-terror unit were becoming radicalized, and that her reports were being ignored by the higher-ups. You have law enforcement officers in the UK in superior command positions, chief constables, inspectors. I'm not sure exactly how the command structure runs over there, but you can take a good guess, having been a law enforcement officer yourself. These are positions that normally would take an officer 15 to 20 years to reach, and yet they're fast-tracking Muslim officers into those positions within 5 years, 10 years, things like that. They're attaining those superior command positions very quickly, and that is having an effect on the security overall in the UK. And I think you see this in the fact that they are giving that they are giving a lot of credence and a lot of breaks to the Muslims in the UK as far as law enforcement goes. A Muslim community says, all right, you'd better take the surveillance cameras that are in everyone else's neighborhood out of our neighborhood, or we're going to quote-unquote boycott the police and not give you any information, as if they were giving them any information in the first place. So what happens? Those cameras get taken out, but the cameras are still left in other neighborhoods where there aren't Muslims. All right? It's gotten into the law enforcement agencies, and I have to wonder, Mark, going back to the going back to the Manchester bombing, I have to wonder how many of the officers that were guarding that outlet where the people were leaving were Muslims. And maybe one of them saw something and didn't do anything. Certainly one witness who went up to police officers and said that she saw a suspicious woman sort of with a bag, sort of looking at the venue and sort of giggling and acting a little strange, was basically lectured by the officers who said they'd look into it but didn't. And yet this woman was basically called an Islamophobe and told to go away. That is basically what's going on. That's how bad it's gotten.
Dan makes a series of really good points in his article. He said a terrorist named Karam Shahzad Butt was known to the police. And he asks how many known to the police types have committed mass murder, how many innocents have died so far. The guy who killed 50 in Orlando was known to the FBI. The Russians actually phoned to warn the United States about the Tsarnaev brothers before they bombed the Boston Marathon. Israeli intelligence agents were said to actually be tailing some of the 9/11 perpetrators in the U.S. at one point, and Mossad warned the Bush administration about a possible plane-involved terrorism plot in the months prior. 90% of terrorism in Western countries can actually be prevented if the authorities would only throw off the shackles of political correctness. And now you learn that Butt worked at the Westminster Tube Station, had access to tunnels located under the UK Parliament. And the police and MI5 insisted one of the London Bridge killers was not dangerous. Despite this, Dave, despite an attempt to travel to Syria, clue, his links to a 7/7 bomber, clue, and a starring role in a Channel 4 documentary on British jihadis watched by millions of people. It's an inside job. This is it. It's an endless circle, Dave. I saw this in the 70s. Hell's Angels were getting women and having them get signed up for jobs in the records and computer divisions of law enforcement so that they could provide inside information to the Hells Angels from law enforcement. It's worked before. It's a Trojan horse. Worked before, working now, and will always be working again. We don't learn. We need to learn. What is the UK learning?
Well, that's the point. And right now, the people of the UK are learning more and more about the threat of Islam. But see, you asked the question. The question I think you should be asking is, what is the government of the UK learning?
Yes.
They're learning basically nothing. The people are learning a lot. There are a lot of good people in the UK, the ones that voted for Brexit and the ones that are, the more and more of the patriots now. They're becoming patriots because of all these attacks. They're learning a lot. It's their own government that is not only ignorant. You can fix ignorance, but they have an imposed stupidity with it. They're obtuse when it comes to this. They don't want to learn because of the possible consequences of having to do something about it. So what have they learned? Zip. I was going to reference a body part, but we'll just say zip.
You can. It's an explicit show. It's my show. I can say any damn thing I want to on it.
Oh, okay. So what have they learned? Dick.
Exactly. Now, you pointed out also, you sent an article to me from the EDL. I don't know if you have that article available to you, but it was the EDL statement on the Islamic attack at London Bridge on Saturday, June 3rd, 2017. Do you happen to have that article in front of you?
I don't have it in front of me. All I can tell you, though, is that Jeff Mitchell read it on EDL Radio, and I thought that, quite honestly, their media team is top-notch because they approached this with good balance and with foresight and forethought. It's the kind of thing that I would have written had I not been so angry at the time. And it shows the caliber of the civil rights organization that they are.
I'm with you. I think it was very measured. I do have the article up in front of me, and I'd like to read perhaps a few paragraphs to those listening right now, because I think you're absolutely right. I think it was quite measured, and it did not go over the top. It's titled this. By the way, you can go there to the EnglishDefenseLeague.org.uk. And it's all spelled out in one long word, EnglishDefenseLeague.org.uk, which is where you can find this. The headline says, EDL statement on the Islamic attack at London Bridge, Saturday, 3 June 2017. Last night, soldiers of Allah once again attacked innocent people, killing at least 7 and seriously injuring others who were out for an enjoyable evening in the city. This is yet another terror attack that has slipped through the UK's counter-terrorism surveillance operation. We have no criticism of MI5 and their police counterparts, especially the brave undercover operatives and informers. With 23,000 known potential jihadists among us, we acknowledge the impossibility of monitoring them all sufficiently to prevent such attacks. There has to be a better way. Killing innocent victims. We often do not share a common point of reference on the meaning of common words. For example, if the killers have twisted their religion ideology, one of the most twisted aspects of that ideology is to pervert the word innocent. For Western non-Muslims, innocent refers to someone who is not guilty of any action that would justify punishment. For the twisted Muslim, however, innocent refers to someone who does not offend Islam. However, non-Muslims who do not submit to Muslim rule are not innocent. Rather, they are guilty of being an unbeliever and of spreading corruption and mischief in Muslim lands. This enables the twisters to look us in the eye and truthfully proclaim, nowhere in the prophetic traditions will you see Muhammad say, kill innocent people, nor will you find it in the Quran while still condoning the killing of infidels for being infidels. Absolutely correct.
Yes.
I didn't see one thing even remotely objectionable in there. Did you, Dave?
No, and it didn't. And yet, you have the mayor of Liverpool who wants the right to deny the freedom to assemble to people that they consider to be too far right. And that, of course, includes the English Defense League. Oh, Antifa can have all the demonstrations they want.
You bet.
But the EDO, no.
Exactly. Okay, we've got about 2.5 minutes left. Is there anything that you really want to get out and say regarding the recent events in the UK and for that sake, the rest of Europe? As in, whether Europe, can Europe survive? Can the UK survive?
I think the only way that any of these countries and any of these people can survive is to understand that it's on them now. They're the ones that are going to have to stand, fight, and win, and not run, hide, and tell. Because if they tell, nobody gives a damn. And I would say that also to our fellow Americans. You know, guys, do it the right way. Arm up, train up, definitely train up. You know, get your safety together as well, all right? And be prepared. This an attack could come at any point, at any time, anywhere. Nowhere is safe. And, you know, I understand that people freeze when these things happen often and things like that. You know this, Mark. You know, civilians will freeze. They're not trained like military people. But one way that you can begin to train yourself not to do that is to have that resolve that if something happens, you're going to fight. And yes, something may happen, but you could save a lot of lives just by doing what this Millwall footy supporter did in the UK. Who knows how many lives he saved that night? That's what we have to do. We have to stand, we have to fight, and we have to win. It's our only choice.
It's funny you mentioned that. There was the article that came out of The Sun. I'm going to go about this very quickly. It came from thesun.co.uk. Defiant battle cry of hero footy fan hailed the Lion of London Bridge after single-handedly fighting machete terror trio with bare fists before mates send him learn to run handbook in hospital. Roy Larner, 47, was with pals when attackers burst into pub with 12-inch blades and chanting Islam, Islam. Dave, that's called a clue. And yet Sadiq Khan is not fucking interested in listening to what people call clues. The UK, especially after Thursday, they're about to pay, potentially, a very serious price. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, thank you, Dave Milner, the unpleasant blind guy, for being on tonight. Dave, finally, can you tell folks where you can be reached and found and read and heard, sir?
My great honor, sir. Please check me out at the Unpleasant Blind Guy page at Spreaker.com, and also at the Unpleasant Blind Guy page at YouTube.com, also on High Plains Talk Radio. And please check out the English Defense League radio program, which is on at 3:30 p.m. on Thursdays and Sundays. Again, Mark, thank you very much. I appreciate you. Keep on doing the good work. You're doing great stuff. And with that, I'll just say, as my friends in the English Defense League do, no surrender, ever.
No, exactly. Thank you, Dave Milner. Thank you, boys and girls, for listening. And it's time to go.
Monsieur has been locked!
We'll meet again. Don't know when, don't know when, but I know we'll meet again. Some sunny
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, thanks for listening to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon on the SHR Media Network. If you want to contact me, you'll find me on Twitter at bzep and on my blog at bloviatingzeppelin.net. My original intro music is by Possessed Tranquility at ReverbNation.com. Promotional consideration by Lockheed Martin Skunkworks and the Boeing Company. If it ain't Boeing, I ain't going. Tiaras by My Little Pony. And thanks to my personal KC-135 Kettle 1 refueling team with whom I will be consulting, trust me, in less than an hour. Thanks for listening live. Thanks for listening in chat and the podcast. God bless everyone. Take care and be safe.
Quiet down now and get some sleep.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, Mama. Good night, Ben.
Good night, everyone. Good night, Mama. Good night, Daddy.
Good night, children. Good night, Daddy. Good night, Elizabeth.
Good night, John Boy. Good night, Jim Bob. Good night, Jim Bob.
Good night, Jim Bob.
What's going on? I was asleep. What's everybody doing?
Good night,
Jim Bob.
Good night, and good luck.